Good evening, it's Joyful Christian Mystic Hermit. I found this, I've been listening to, it's some site on Facebook Reels, has people share their near death experiences, and they were so similar to mine. They always are. And one man, especially, young man, talked about love, that the purpose is love, share love. Same thing that I've come to, but to live it is another thing, to actually live it. And then another woman was talking about just, and she actually had a death experience. The others were near death, like up to a ceiling or something and looking down. But she had gone and had the opportunity to open a door and things, and was no longer in the room where her body was, etc. So much further along. But she came to understand many things. She didn't want to go back because she did not want to have all the hassles and the guilt and the this and the that. And she was so tired. Her husband had killed himself. And she grieved terribly, really lost her mind for a brief time. Friends took care of her. And there it is, that love of giving to others, part of the love. But she brought out this point of that of the healing of the guilt in the soul, the healing involved in love. And I thought that's another important part to remember. She went back. She wanted to go on because she didn't want all of that. And she was ready to raise her arm to go through this door that was in front of her. But she stopped because she thought, why is the door closed? Shouldn't be open. So she asked, because she realized, well, she wanted to do what God willed. So she asked, is this, if I go through, is that the will of God? And this spiritual being who was beside her reminded me of the angel who was beside me all the time. And in this ER situation, explaining things to me that were so bizarre. And I realized just how much God does love us and watches over us. When he wants us, whatever he wants of us, he will make sure happens. So, but this angel said to her, well, it is not the will of the divine will that you go on. He prefers you to go back. But if you do go on, God will always love you and have mercy on you and will not blame you, will not hold it against you if you go on, even though he prefers you to go back. And his will is that you return. And so she thought, well, heck, then I'm going to go on. I'm going through the door. And she raised her arm up again to go push it open. And she had a vision of this nurse back in her ER room. Right before she bled out, she had asked this nurse, please don't let me die. And the nurse had promised her. So God showed her the nurse in a supply room on a stool, just sobbing and sobbing, and let her know what the nurse was crying about, knew her thoughts, how she had failed. She had failed and bore all that guilt and sorrow that she couldn't keep the woman alive, hadn't kept the promise that she would keep her alive, wouldn't let her die. And that woman who was going to go through realized if she could save one person on earth, she would go back to help that nurse not have to feel the guilt and the sorrow that she herself had grieved about over her husband killing himself. And she had borne the guilt because the last time they had spoken on the phone, they'd had an argument. And she didn't realize that she thought he loved her so much that he would never do something like that. And in this process of her death experience, or near death, I guess it was, she hadn't actually died yet, totally, hadn't gone through the door, but was so much further than the other people who shared theirs, who were still in the room. But this guide also had explained to her, you weren't that important. It wasn't a matter of him not loving you enough, or, you weren't part of that. And you carried that guilt, thinking all this. And it reminds me just how much we try to think through things, because I felt the same way as this woman. She ended up going back and living. And she's written books now, and she's written a book about her near-death experience, and the other side. And she had a lot more wisdom that she was told to than anyone else that I listened to. But, was into scripture and really altered her, made her a totally different person, away from the grief and the guilt and self-blame and etc. But I thought, that's how I feel. I carry all this of, and while I was out walking, I didn't bring it up, but I had more insights about why two of my children would drop off. My son, a lot of anger about being Catholic. That made him very angry. And he's been indoctrinated a lot in the East Coast, in Manhattan mindset of a lot of people in the media. A very, very different group is the media. And in fact, a lot of times I'll see things that other people write or say that they say is even happening out in the world, and I'll look it up because it isn't at all anything that I'm hearing. And it's always these off-kilter or offbeat media, sensationalists that have an agenda. So we're not even getting the same news. It's gotten so twisted by people's agenda and a group agenda. It's all this political agenda is really tainting people's minds and dividing us against one another. And I think there's stories out, just terrible things and it's not even true, hasn't been proven. But people believe it because the news say it. But they're these not reliable. You have to research, consider the source. Oh, but they're large. Well, that doesn't matter. I know from my son, who worked in one of them, and well, now he's in another major. But the twistedness, and a lot of it's for their political viewpoint of the owner and the chief boss, and then all of their other mindsets go along with it of human beings. They have their agendas, and they form the news accordingly. I have seen that. I know firsthand from my son, because he has such anger and hatred in him. And it all started at St Bonaventure. Well, maybe his last year in high school, he was individuating out from me, which I understand is normal. Hooray. It needs to happen. But he was okay until his junior year in college. And then by his graduation, he was vicious to me. But his dad had moved in on him, and that didn't help either. But, and his dad is like that. Doesn't consider the source. But of course, he is all over he's not a well person. hasn't been. He's had these disorders for years. The lying and the sociopath, psychopath mindset, but very successful, very charming. A lot of women who've been with that, they know exactly, what, and men who've been with women like that. So it's a complex couple of combined narcissism, usually with the what's now called antisocial personality disorder, combo psycho and sociopath together, but because the traits flow together. But it's just to see then there's people out there very successful. He was a principal, then a superintendent, started out a teacher, 4th grade children, and had me fooled for a few years, and I had no idea of the extent, but all this ugliness, and I thought, I'm going to pray tonight and ask God to go ahead and have another dream to guide me, to tell me what God wants of me. His will be done. It's been another rugged day of pain, and I had to take extra oral pill when I got back from the walk. I wasn't going to make it getting supper ready. And nothing big did I have, but fixing the dog their food, and then I did a cream of rice. Well, no, I had to rest. I baked some sweet potato and onion and Brussels sprouts in oil on a big long pan in the oven, but just cutting it up and standing after getting it started after that walk. The walk was nice and a little more hopeful again because but the pain when I was walking then. So I don't know. But I thought maybe I'd better pay attention to the dream of the person who was all bandaged up. It wasn't the white film lumped on the floor, the little casing of my body. This time it was this being facing me, large, but he was all wrapped, all bandaged up in white bandage, standing, and he was talking to me, and it was serious what he was saying and warning, like a warning to me. It was a warning, and so I'm praying again tonight that I'll try to pay attention to it. And but binding Satan from it, from any dreams, I'm binding Satan. Right before I close my eyes, I'll pray again, but ask God to speak to me and to revisit that if it's something I need to know. But also while walking, I thought again about love, the purpose of our being here, learning love, and utilizing the love, practicing with it, giving it. So we've mentioned humility is very important. And I thought, God, give me the humility that if my body truly cannot manage on its own, then give me the humility to suffer concrete and tile and darkness and a neighbor that won't be happy with me there. I thought I have to be open to God's will because I don't know what's happening with my body. I'll call the doctor tomorrow. I first have to go get the eyes done for the glaucoma, get that checked. I have to get a blood test for the kidneys. Might be getting a bladder infection or kidney. I can't tell yet. It's too soon to tell. So I'm drinking lemon and water. And I have diluted loganberry. So I have clear water with lemon that's supposed to help cleanse. But I was finishing up this half juice and more than half, less than half juice and more water in that glass. So I don't know. And I've been thinking about my children and how they can't fathom what it's like for me. I can sort of fathom, but not really, what their childhoods were like. Although I know it was terrible for them. And I know, thank you, Coyne, if he listens to these. Thank you for telling me I was a great mom. But not really. I mean, it's very sweet just to leave me a message like that. I tried. I did try. But I had too much against me. And I had a lot of selfishness in me still. Well, it was all protective, mama bear protective. I was hoping that I could figure out a good life for them and make it up for them a lot. And I just had so much pain that I was dealing with, and low income. Finances were always a problem. He didn't always pay the child support, or would only pay a portion. And I couldn't get it. I tried to go to court and couldn't get through in California. So it was very, and I was thinking tonight of something the daughter here had said not too long ago. And it's probably some truth in it. I'm trying to look back. But she said, you always felt like life wasn't fair. You always felt like life wasn't fair. And she has learned a lot of stoicism from her divorce. And I sort of wish she hadn't gotten so hardened like that. But I don't blame her. But I think she, in part, yes. It was unfair. I didn't feel it. It was. My ordeal with the lawyer was unfair. With the kid who hit me was unfair. I had some bad stuff happen that was not just. And it caused a lot of financial hardship on myself with my children, that it was hard to provide. And part of the reason we had to move. But God had every night had a dream telling me. And I went for a year with it repeated every night because I feared the battle with the ex-husband ahead of time. And he had already made it very obvious he wanted me off the earth. So things were getting a little bit scary. Not just for me, but for my children. And that was after I'd had the death experience. And he had called the hour before the surgery and said he hoped I'd die. And he was not to know even what hospital I was in, but he found out somehow. So, things happened, but I thought from her perspective, I probably did always seem like life was unfair from my perspective. That's her perspective of me. And in love of others, we cannot change their perspective. They cannot comprehend us any more than we can really comprehend what they've been through from little childhood on. And this one was one that took a lot of the, she tried to always fix things, to always cheer and be the peacemaker. She was a middle child. But I relied on that. The eldest one in high school had a rebellion with me and didn't want to talk to me at times, and went one whole summer. And I was so worried about her. I'd go in her room and check. She would just curl up against the wall, wouldn't speak. I think that was the summer after her freshman year in college. But in high school, it had been very difficult. A lot of anger. Maybe it was from moving from California. I don't know what, because she wouldn't talk to me. She wouldn't open up and share. She wouldn't to a counselor either. Tried 3 different counselors, 2 as an old in high school, and 1 the summer between her college years. Wouldn't talk to that counselor. Could have fixed what later she told me at one point was a problem. She'd wanted to go to transfer to a different school. And I didn't realize if she'd told me it wasn't, she didn't say much, that she was that upset or anything or that adamant about it. If she even told me, her sister knew nothing of it. I don't recall anything of it. And I didn't recall 13 years ago or 14 years ago when she told me. 14 years ago it was. That finally had this outburst at me over it. When I was still recovering from the terrible shoulder surgery. It's the moments they pick too. But I think that's by design. God allows it because it makes us stronger and it humbles us more. But I've carried that then. That sense of, a mother would do anything. I've apologized. I did, oh my goodness. I would have tried to get her elsewhere had I known. Oh my. So, all I knew is she loved her freshman year. That was her best friend in college, and all through they were roommates. I had no idea she disliked it like that, like she said later. And she was crying and yelling at me, really letting her emotions out, which was good. She bottles things up. So this other one has learned she won't confront others, but she'll confront me. And I'm grateful because there were so many times with her ex-husband she needed to confront him, and she was afraid of him. So it's good she's not afraid of me, and that's good. I like her to learn to confront when I'm off this earth. I want her to be able to confront people when they're upset her or do something wrong, or she feels she's wronged, rather than just taking it and taking it and taking it. That's what she tends to do with others. They're very good-natured and doesn't like confrontation. And I admire that because she stays out of, but I don't know what it does within her. I think it's made her sort of OCD a little bit of, well, I can't say that. She's highly organized. It's a wonderful trait. She's minimalistic and everything's very organized, but she's working so many different positions she needs to be. And I know it's a fact. The more organized you are, the better off you are. So I know it's not best the way I'm living. I know that, but I can't let it bother me because I can't really do anything about it. I kept thinking I could, even all winter. I would set a goal. I'd get up and get rid of the clothes. And I just am wiped out. So I'm facing this now, thinking of humility and what this woman with her death experience of, not that we're not to carry all this guilt and things. It's not about us. Other people's lives aren't dependent on us like that. They make their own choices. I build it up that, if I'd only done this or that. No, people are like, my daughter, people, it sort of seems like she cares more about getting the house or something. I don't think so. I don't think she would love it. And I did renege on her, which I feel bad. But I would have never dreamed of asking my mother to trade, ever. if she was content somewhere. But it's true, I have to face reality. If I can't function better than this, this is going to get difficult here. I mean, I go out and prune. Amanda, yes, I did it, but I suffered greatly then after. But it's like forcing me because I have a lot of investment in this and I feel for the plants. If I don't get those roses pruned down, they're not going to be healthy this summer. And I feel I'm so empathic anymore, which I appreciate. This little boy online with his cancer and others, I get so empathic about it. And other people that I hear about. Maybe too much. If I had to live with another person, it would be too much for other people to be around. The empathy. But I'm a hermit. I'm here to learn love, and I'm learning it. But I'm not taking it upon myself that I can do other than pray. But I feel, and the more I suffer, the more I feel for others. And I understand their plight. Like the daughter that's divorced, I understand. But she just pushed through it. She didn't, but she has someone else. But I don't know how that's going. I honestly don't. I know it's a trial. I think it's harder to live with another person than to be on your own, frankly. I really do. But you learn a lot of love that way, and selflessness, and patience, and sacrifice. All things, it's a suffering that helps you love more. And then, of course, there are the benefits. If the person does things, if you're not the one doing it all, if you become sick, if the other person picks up the load, but if you have someone who doesn't, then that can be a problem. But or a contributor or a non-contributor or whatever. But it's an interesting thing. You learn so much with other people, obviously, and God has me solo. I realize the pain. Way back, God knew that, how bad the pain was going to get, and allowed it. When we don't know why He allows certain things, we just don't know. But all we can do is try to grow by it and learn to love more from it, and to know that the linkage between love and suffering is a very beneficial, it's a symbiotic bond kind of thing. It both are elevated by it. They're good for one another. So it's not like a parasite with one taking from the other. It's symbiotic. It's a joint process that's very, very good and makes pure the love. And pure love is better than impure love, or just plain love with no purity. So of course we want the pure love, and that involves suffering. So a lot of this, and I thought of humility, hanging on is not humility. I'm just going to have to wait this out and see what unfolds. I honestly am in a big limbo because pain meds, if you have progressive pain, and if there's some, I know there has to be something very wrong with my thoracic now. Standing on, when was that, Tuesday or Monday? Last Monday it was. A week ago, standing for those 2 hours when Brian was here. That really put me over. So something regarding that, or and any lifting now at all. I lifted the shop vac today. It doesn't have wheels on it. This one doesn't. It's the most powerful too. And it wasn't even that heavy. It's not taking much now. So this has been exacerbated. And or just further collapsed, further deteriorated in the last 2 or 3 weeks. Maybe using the Sawzall, the reciprocating saw. I let gravity pull it down to cut the nails out and to cut the shims out, but I don't know. It doesn't take much of anything. So I think I probably do need an MRI to see. I have to face the reality. God's with me. What can be against me, And then I thought, how I'd like to be in this other place. But I think they're very expensive, more than my daughter could afford. And all my money's wrapped up here. If we could get an equity loan on this house, she would have to make the payments. Or help, because I don't make it monthly. Every third month I get through, not fully. This time I didn't. I had to take out of what's left of the inheritance to get through this month. But April I'll get caught up. Ooh, I've got to do my taxes. And see what's left. If I can make it through then May and June, and then I'll have July. And if there's anything extra that happens, cost-wise, then I'm under water and have to take out from the base. That's why it keeps going down. So it's, but my mortgage here is so small compared to what it would be. And I guess my daughter thought that she would pay this. I said, oh no, you're going to have to pay your townhouse mortgage. I cannot afford that. Because she bought it later, and she didn't put as much down. I have a lot down on this. I put a lot down to get my monthly down. But, so I have to be very open to God's will, the long and short of it. And, love very much includes God's will. Pure love. That's foremost with it, is doing God's will. Like that lady found out in her near-death experience. That and a selflessness, to realize that there she was, taking on all these thoughts and guilts and assuming. Love does not assume. So I can no more assume that my daughter has this other agenda. I really assume that she wants the best for me. But I also have to understand how frustrating it is for her. Because she's so busy, she cannot allow herself to get worried and caught up in my problems. And she cried the first time. She came in here after, I think it was after I nearly died. It just bothered her so much how I was living. She hadn't been in here in a long time. And how I can barely function, with, I can't do extras and keep up the yard, in other words, or make them, cook something. To freeze so I can eat off a soup for 3 or 4 days at a time. And then I have other little containers. I make a big pot and then just eat a bowl every night, And add a lot of bone broth to it to make it last longer. So and make it more liquid too for my intestines. But she could not cope with, but I've learned I have to let go. So it doesn't bother me as much. I would prefer not like this. But I'm in a real downward trajectory, quickly, debilitating. And the pain med isn't strong enough. It just isn't. When I get up, so it's helping a lot, but it's still not giving me. Yesterday, I think it was such a shock from what it had been. And maybe if I hadn't gone to the grocery, but I had to, see. You go into any place, it's going to be concrete floors, most places, unless it's an old building. And this is all new area. A lot of things are built up. So so I'm asking God to repeat the dream or any warnings or messages he has for me, if it's from him. Otherwise, devil, forget it. But I should have written down what that was, but I just remember seeing that figure standing there at the end of the bed, or in front of me. The bed, I could see from down low up all through the head, just wrapped in bandages and talking to me, giving me warnings. So I have to be open. If I'm supposed to go to that tile and hard floor, concrete, I can't imagine, but it's hard enough standing on my floors here now. Just crazy. So I got those shims thinking I haven't done a thing. So it's the lumbar's hurting. So I'm not getting enough. The patch is too low of a dose for me. I'll have to be very honest with the pain doctor. But I have thought, the other thing that hit me, especially with the young man saying his whole life is lived spreading love. He's an artist. His art, anything to do with his art, he's doing music therapy now, getting a master's in music therapy. To have any form of art bring love to others. His death experience changed him in that way. And I just know from what God's teaching me about pure love. But that's the reason I'm here. I've known it for years, but I'm taking it more seriously now. I think the added suffering is helping me focus more on love and my reason for being here, especially after last June. I knew I had gotten way too into the manual labor things, way into the garden. I have all these incredible experiences that God has given me and messages. I forget things in my journals. I forgot these other visions, even the dream that I'd written to Father Vincent in 2013 in an old email. Profound messages from heaven. And there was a book I was going to write once, because I've also had just short phrases given me over time that are meaning loaded from God and over the years. And I was going to call it From Heaven to Hermit, 10 heavenly messages, and write just a short bit about each. We'll make it 90 pages, 100, whatever, short little book. But one of them, it was early on, I was told, when I'd had the collapse from the first priest, it had got to be too much. The horror of his behavior. how cruel and nasty. And I wasn't thinking, I'd put him up on a pedestal. My first priest, the one God told me to go to, he wanted me to learn and to help him, to pray for him, to realize, suffer for him. That's when I started to piece it together. That no, I'm called into the Catholic Church, not for my joy and all that. It's to help. It's to love that much. I love the church that much and saw the beauty, and still do, that it made me willing to suffer. I offered my life before the tabernacle if it would help his church. I cared that much, and I was so shocked to find out that it wasn't this perfect, and in writing and in basis it is, but in the lived, because of us sinners. That's the problem. But I'd read so many saint books, and then they have the saints and their holy spiritual directors and all, and I assumed every priest was like a saint. Well, why wouldn't they be? They consume the Eucharist, they consecrate, they hold in their hands, the host turns into Christ's body and blood. And so I thought, they would be holy automatically just from that experience. And no, because they haven't learned love. They haven't learned this. They aren't at a purity of love. Not all of them. Some are. Some are there, and some aren't doing naughty things. Many are not. So, there's one on Facebook, real. Of course, they're human, but he has these messages, and he's so serious. It sort of makes me tense, so I don't listen. I'm sorry. I listen to a couple, but he goes like, he gets all tense, and everything's so serious. And I thought, remember, chill out in your videos, be human and laugh, because if he's talking about love or anything, it just, you don't feel it because he's so serious. But I can tell he's a very holy priest. He means it. It means something to him. There I leave a comment. Smile now and then. God is, love is joyful. It's good. Suffering is painful, yes, but we can still, that's part of what those of us who have chronic suffering have learned. Our purpose on earth will be lost if we're moaning all the time and can't smile and can't interact at a level that other people can relate with, at least a little bit at times. Not to, when the pain gets that bad that you can't hide it, yes, you can't. There's no faking sometimes. But it reminded me, seeing him, which is a good thing, to try to, not frown or get too overly serious about any of it, because even with suffering, see, then there's this love part. So the two are together, they're intertwined, and in God's view, it's not awful. But he makes good points. So, I like listening to his good points, and it's just, I should probably just go like this and just listen. But it's when you have pain, you get extra picky. It's a terrible thing. Those of you who have pain, if you aren't picky, you have done well to overcome yourself, because that's a flaw I have. I get extra fussy when I'm in a lot of pain, and any little thing can get to me. that makes me feel more pain, like someone who's very scrunched up and over just something that's regular. And so then I get very critical. And see, that's not good either. Although it did remind me to try to not make Christianity misery or miserable or so hard or serious, so serious, you know. It's but that's his heart though. And I take Christianity seriously. I tend to repeat myself a lot. Like about pure love, I'd get so excited and repeat it, trying to figure a way to get through, you know, get it through to me and to fully embrace it. But the next lesson here is that is selflessness in pure love, not just humility, but it's not always what I presume or assume of others, and it's not about me. And a lot of my life was that way, and I think my kids, you know, tried their best to take care of me or to build me up or encourage and that, because it was rough. It was rough. But now they're silent. She hasn't called or texted, you know, how has this patch worked? Has it helped you, Mom? She is cutting off. She can't take it. Because in her mind, the obvious thing to do would be to get into her townhome with Simple and not deal with what she thinks would be a nightmare to live with. But I'm so warped because of suffering for so long, nearly 42 years, that other things matter more to me, bring me more endurance, like windows and peacefulness and light and not having concrete and tile. See, the thought of that sort of made me get nauseated even. I'm at the point, I think I could go nuts if this thoracic spine flares up much. That's why I back down in bed. That's why it's hard to get up. Psychologically, I can't cope with that with that type of pain. So something's probably be bone on bone, or it's pretty nasty. I did loosen up walking after a while. I think it was because I had taken a second one of those pills, and I'd also put a fresh patch on. So I think I helped it along. But it was felt good to loosen up and to be out, and so having a little fenced yard isn't helpful to me, because I wouldn't feel the pressure. Got to get these dogs on a walk, you know. And I know that's best for me too. So we'll see what happens, but I have to remember faith, trust God, just trust God, and do what He wants. Pure love is strictly God's will material. In order to love purely, we have to abide by and live automatically. Thy will be done, not mine. And thy wishes even be done. What you want for me, not just what God wills for me. What do you want for me, Lord? What's your preference in addition to your will? What's your wishes for me? Your hope for me? Your desire for me? What do you desire? And go from there. And see, now if He would say, go to the townhome, I'll take care of you, or, you know, if it does something awful to me, then at least I know I didn't do it to myself, that God wanted me to go there, that He was hastening my death through added suffering. I don't know if it would kill me. I don't know, if it would just be more wear and tear of more pain being in there on that. See, I used to help her, and then I'd come back and I'd be laid up for 2 or 3 days after from just working on her, working on her place, being on the concrete and tile. And I never told her. I didn't want her to feel guilty or feel bad, and I liked help. I loved being needed and utilized. It was purposeful. I felt good that I had skills and could save her a bundle of money, especially doing the mirror wiring and stuff. I wish she'd let me do her tile backsplash. She got a great price from Mike on that. Great price, so not so me. Well, he did a good price for the shower. I think, well, not per square foot, but compared to her square footage of her floor, but whatever, it was, in fact, I paid $500 more for the shower and the backsplash than she did for all her flooring, which was considerable. So, but maybe the flooring was easier for him too. I had large format tile. Oh, whatever. I'm not gonna worry about it. And I don't want to spend $1,200 to have him do the backsplash of the tub. I'll do it like one tile at a time and wait until I have stronger med, or else just take this other more frequently than I'm supposed to. But my pain doctor said that was what it was down to with the oral med. Oh, anyway, I've got to be up in a few hours to go to the eye place. But I want to read this. I just keep going on and on, don't I? Sort of the same thing. I think, and I shouldn't do videos of it because, see, repeating helps me to settle into it and talking it over to get through, to realize, no, I've got to do what God wants. It's not a matter of my choice if I stay here or where I go. And but if I stay here, I'm going to have to learn to really detach, not let any of it bother me. And just, I've got to try to, as I came back from that walk, I said aloud, I need to focus on my health. Just like I'm praying for this one person who wants her health and her wellness. Her eating, I don't know if she meant eating or what, her lifestyle and a healthy way and to be well. This is St Clement of Alexandria. Well, the whole thing's good. Let us therefore repent and pass from ignorance to true knowledge, from foolishness to wisdom, from unrighteousness to righteousness, from godlessness to God. The enjoyment of many other good things comes from this, to which God himself alludes, speaking by Isaiah. There is an inheritance for those who serve the Lord. Not gold and silver, nor that which moth destroys and thieves steal, but the inestimable treasure of salvation. This is the inheritance with which God's eternal covenant invests us, assuring us of his gifts, and thus our tenderly loving Father ceases not to exhort, to train, to love, and to save us. Become righteous, says the Lord. All you who are thirsty, come to the water. And you who have no money, come, buy without money and drink. He invites us to the purifying bath, to salvation, to illumination. The saints of the Lord shall inherit the glory of God and his power, a glory which eye has not seen, nor ear heard, and which has not entered the human heart. You have this divine promise of grace. You have heard, on the other hand, of the threats of punishment. By these two ways the Lord saves. Why do we delay? Why do we not receive the free gift? Why do we not choose the better part? Behold, he says, I have set before you death and life. The Lord tries to make you choose life. He counsels you like a father. To whom shall the Lord say, yours is the kingdom of heaven? It is yours if you want it. If your choice is set on God, it is yours. If you will only believe and follow the essence of the message, just as the Ninevites obeyed the message of the prophet and obtained a gracious salvation thanks to their sincere repentance, instead of the destruction that threatened them. So this is all very appropriate. Another thing I thought of is I have to stop going over the situation. It's taking me away from learning and living pure love. And just take what comes. Trust in God. I'm choosing God, and He will lead me to what He wants. And telling that person last night, that image, or saying, I don't want to remember this, because it was hard to hear it, what he was telling me. I need to hear it and write it down, discern it, and deal with it. But it was a warning, and I know with him being all wrapped up, I think it's my body. He might be telling me that all my construction days are totally over. Totally over. Any kind of work, lifting, or I don't even know about pruning. I may not be able to garden. God may be straightening, tightening up on me to do writing and to share. Because there's so much more I could share. Get my books out and situated and do that. And maybe better not to be in here. And then trust in God regarding my weakness. I mean, I could walk the dogs there. It's busy around there. No more noise, but I can put those little ear things in and block out a lot of noise. Or get those big things. And I could get muzzles for the dogs. It's sort of hard to think of having them not be able to express themselves, because that's part of their emotion and their passion. When they play with each other, roughhouse, oh, they love making those noises. It adds to their enjoyment of life. What if I tell that lady, well, you can't talk then? Don't talk. Don't exclaim if you see they have the TV on all day kind of people. Don't exclaim if you see something funny. Don't laugh. Don't talk to your husband or him talk to you. See how? But no, I wouldn't. Well, maybe I would explain it in that way. It's like you and your husband talking. Or you laughing, or you shouting if you get upset, calling out. So I have to trust God and let go of this situation and not assume anything of my daughter. I know she would love it. And in a way that bugs me. See, I just think how I would have been. I would not have, I don't think. But I do know my two older sisters. They tried to push our mother in when she wasn't ready yet. And I kept telling them, wait, let her come to it. She'll hit a wall at some point, and then she'll call us. Say, I need your help to get me into a care center. That's exactly what she did. And so but they wouldn't let up on her. It made her angry. And then the eldest one was going to try to get her considered incompetent, which she wasn't at all mentally, and take over her money. And that wasn't good. And the other one wanted to do it just because she thought my mother wouldn't be okay, even though she had long-term health insurance. She worried, her husband, she's a worrier though. Oh, my husband will have to use his retirement money. What will we live on? To use that up for mom, to take care of her. No, she's got insurance, But it didn't sink in. When we worry, things don't sink in. So I've got to move away from this and just turn back to love and what I'm supposed to be doing and learning and practicing. And it's not fussing. It's not fretting. It's not going nuts over too much pain. When I get to that point, I need more pain meds and I must not delay taking them. And I'm at that point now where it's so bad that I don't care. I don't care. If I wait the amount of time I need. If I can't handle it, I can't handle it. And I know enough about myself that when I'm at that point, it's bad. So, like right now, even just the pain going down my legs, he's going to have to increase the pump. Because this patch isn't handling the down the leg pain and the lumbar. It needs, and that hasn't been increased in 2.5 years, or 2 years at least, the pump hasn't. So I think at least 2.5. And and when I had my knee replacement 3 years ago, they were amazed at the hospital, they were amazed at what a low pump outlay I had. It was barely anything. So I appreciate my pain doctor. It's best to trust in the person to be able to handle it. Try that first. You don't want to over-medicate anyone. In fact, they can lose their license for doing that. But it's time, and he knows. He wouldn't have said he was going to do the patch if he thought that I could handle it anymore. I can't. So we'll deal with that too, the pump. And I don't want to, but whatever that person was telling me, I need to hear it, or maybe God will just let me have to figure it out or deal with consequences. But that's the other thing, is maybe my days of doing is over, rather than just keep going and more pain meds, so that I just need enough basically to be able to fix something to eat and try to go for walks. But if that's too much, you have to sacrifice, be selfless, and be realistic. That's part of love, pure love. The suffering part of pure love is the dying to self. And what makes sense to us is to keep active as long as possible. As long as possible. If it's at the point it's a losing battle, because the thoracic is too bad, too terrible, then you have to stop. And then I'm sort of trusting that one of those townhomes across the golf course that are, yes, they are old, but they have the wood subfloor. The ones this lady's talking about, I'm pretty sure it's going to be way above the daughter's price range. But none of them come for sale often. And so I have to trust God to have one of those. That's my prayer. And if not, um, I'm alert. I have too much allergy to carpet, so that's not a solution to put thick carpeting over. But they have these rubber pads to stick on top. That's going to be minimal for me. It's the concrete base. See, I have rug in my kitchen. It helps. I stand on that. It's thick, but it's just a little rug isn't going to do it so much. But carpeting really does it. It collects dust in it and stuff, and the fibers and things. So, oh, okay. Yeah, I go over and over. I ruminate on it, and that happens too when you have too much pain. Your mind tends to go over and over, and you become paranoid about other things. But I know my daughter's she's had to just so totally back off now, because I frustrate her too much. Being around pain patients is too frustrating, because what you think is normal, you cannot think like a pain patient thinks. You just can't unless you've been there or are in it yourself. It's too hard, because it is a twisted view. It's an abnormal view you develop. And everything becomes whatever will make less pain for you. Your mind just automatically starts thinking in those terms. What's going to be the least amount of added pain? Because anything will add pain. What will be the least that I can do? So, all right. Love to suffer and suffer to love. This is being put to the test. St. Michael, your great statement, your command, I am having to put it to the test to a higher degree than ever.